Welcome everybody back to another episode of Placed in Shelter, again with your host Ryan Catarozoli. Thank you everybody for joining us. Glad to see a lot of the same faces. As always, if you are catching this on YouTube and would like to be a part of the conversation, we have these live every day, 3 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday. There is a link in the description. If you were just to log in right around 3 o'clock, hit that link. You will be taken right into our meeting. The link never changes. And with that said, we're going to cruise into the perfect hold. And what we want to talk about today is going to be kind of 3 parts. Who this customer is, what's required to meet the requirements of this customer, and what kind of products can do this. So number 1, let's talk about some of the most difficult holding that there is. I know we've covered some fried product and things like that, but let's talk about what this customer is looking for. This customer is looking for maximum hold times, but at the same time, they want to maximize the quality of the food. So there's no such thing as a bad sandwich after 4 hours in this unit. They want it to be just as good as when they first made it, but 2, 3, 4 hours later. This customer may have some delicate product that doesn't withstand a ton of heat, needs to have very ideal humidity. So it's just very, very particular product, sensitive to both temperature and time. A lot of the product that goes in here is going to be handmade product. Very rarely are you going to see a pre-produced frozen product that's rethermalized and placed in here. A lot of this is going to be handmade, like the pizzas you see in the picture here, as well as handmade sandwiches, things that are done right there on the spot, just as you would serve the customer and then placed in the unit. The product presentation is of the utmost importance. So the merchandising aspect of this is as important as the hold times and the food quality. And then last but not least, we rarely are going to see the product actually packaged. The product is going to be out and visible to the customer, so it's not going to be already prepackaged. Okay? Moving on, what's required to meet some of those extremely difficult holding questions? Number 1, exact temperature control. There's no guessing. There's no dial with a low, medium, or high. It's not going to vary from day to day based on the temperature inside the store. It's not going to vary from season to season. They're going to need something that's going to maintain an exact temperature every single time. Number 2, exact humidity controls. Once again, we have a lot of great products, and so does the competition, that gives you a humidity option of 0 to 5, or once again, a low, medium, and high. That's not going to be exact enough for this customer. This customer wants to know 15% relative humidity in that cabinet, whether it's summer, whether it's fall, whether it's in Arizona, or it's in Alaska. They want that relative humidity to be the same for their product. This customer is also looking for less frame, more glass. Again, remember the utmost importance on visualization and merchandising, along with food quality and safety. And then last but not least is the importance of the look of the unit overall, which we just kind of touched upon. So what product actually works for this customer that we happen to offer? And that's going to be the cube, either the full size or the half size. But let's start out with talking about the look of the unit. Obviously from this, it's very different from our other humidified cabinets. It's very different from a back of the house heated holding cabinet, and it's very different from an FSDT or an FDWD, which are very, very popular. You see them all over the place, and they do a fantastic job. But with this one, you can see just from looking at the pictures, less frame, more glass. It's about the product. It's not about the unit that's holding the product. In fact, you can see in this picture here, the product appears as if it's levitating. So everything on your eyesight goes right to the food product, as opposed to any signage that's on there or the actual unit itself. All right, the next thing this unit offers is going to be your balanced LED lighting. So this goes along with the look. You're going to get full LED lights on the top, the sides, and the bottom, which actually, looking at this picture, you don't even see. It's seamlessly built right into the unit. And this is going to give you that long-term life that we talked about on LEDs, and it's also going to give you a nice balanced color for the food that's going into the product. LCD touchscreen. Remember the importance here. On the LCD touchscreen, this is where we set ourselves apart. I know that when I set that unit to 170 degrees, it's going to be at 170 degrees. There's not a low, medium, high. There's not a knob that has a thin line that gets fatter, and I hope that it's at the same setting every single day. This is going to monitor that temperature and make sure it's actually at 170 degrees. Next up, that LCD touchscreen also gives you the same humidity control. So now I know that if I set it to 12% relative humidity, I know that it's going to be the same every single day. That's an enclosed cavity. It's actually reading how much humidity is in there, and through an algorithm, it's telling the atomizers how often it needs more humidity. So you're going to get that exact, very, very pinpoint accurate humidity controls. Now, the control also offers timers. You can have up to 8 of them. The timers are going to be able to tell that customer exactly how long the product's been in there. So their product may be a 2-hour hold. It might be a 3-hour hold. They will be able to know exactly which shelf level is going to be in there for the exact amount of time. So that touchscreen controller alone is going to give us a lot of the things this customer is looking for. We talked about the humidity percentage already. We also have a flow rate that enables rapid getting back up to temperature when the doors are open and closed. So you don't have a lot of lulls and then highs as the unit comes back. This is going to be very, very quick to respond, so it gets back up to temperature quickly. Again, this is all the things for that very, very accurate hold. Now, we also have to talk about how configurable this is. Whether you like the look of the arms or you like the look of the shelves like you see in this one, or you can even do risers on the bottom. So you have a lot of different configurations that are allowed. Do you want to stagger the arms? Do you want them level like you see here? Do you want different colors? So it's very configurable because, again, this customer is looking for the utmost importance on merchandising visualization of the product. Now, last but not least, I do need to talk a little nuts and bolts here. This does require a 1/4 inch water line. So your water supply needs to be between 20 and 50 PSI, and some basic guidelines to water here. And I wrote these down right from Steve Fromm himself. Number 1, water filtration will address particulate matter in the water lines, but it is not a substitute for a water softening system. So this unit does come with a filter, but you need to make sure that the water has been softened. Now, we also say the unit should be installed and maintained with the same water use considerations as a commercial coffee maker. Okay, now last but not least, the water hardness will be no more than 50 parts per million or 50 milligrams per liter for optimum performance. If those guidelines are followed, this unit right here will meet all of the guidelines for that extremely difficult hold and will give you what I'm calling the perfect hold. So that's going to wrap up today's talk. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. As always, if you look to the bottom, you'll see the chat box. If you open that up, you can go ahead and place your question in there, and we will do our best to answer them. And as you're coming up with questions, I do have one other email I want to talk about that came in. There was a question on the LED clarification from yesterday. Now, when I talked about LEDs giving off heat in the form of conduction and needing a heat sink around them, that is 100% true. Now, the clarification I need to make is that our Chef LED light at 3.5 watts is creating virtually no heat. But if you put all the pieces together from the talk yesterday, the heat sink that is on our Chef LED is dissipating the temperature that's in the unit. Remember, we're operating these in a hot environment, whether it's a strip heater or a cabinet. So although the light itself in our situation is not creating a ton of heat, that heat sink is being used to dissipate heat that's coming from the strip heater or the cabinet. So I hope that clarifies a little bit, because both statements were true, but I think some people were thinking that the 3.5 watt Chef LED was putting off a lot of heat to the heat sink, and that's not the case. That's there to dissipate heat from the unit. Great. Moving along, Paul, you can add humidity. If it's too high, do you have to vent to a lower if it is needed? That's a great question. Now, there is going to be some level of ambient humidity that's in the atmosphere. So it depends on where I place this unit. We do have the doors closed and control the environment to an extent, but there is a possibility that on the low end, you may end up being at 4 or 5% in there, even if you wanted it to be at completely zero. So there is a threshold on the lower end depending upon the environment that it's placed in. But it does a very nice job of enclosing the environment and then using the relative humidity sensor to make sure that you can dial in within 1%. So you can go from 0 all the way up to 20 roughly in that unit. Great question. Carmen San Diego, have you considered removing the metal frame in the front window and UV bonding the glass, similar to what a sneeze guard would have? I understand this would be difficult to ship, but the look would be sexy. So 2 things. Number 1, yes, we have thought about this. And you bring up a good point about the shipping. If you're familiar with this unit, the frame does have little screws. They're not quite thumb holes or thumb screws, but there's little screws on the outside of them. And the reason we did that is because when you do ship these long different distances and it's on the back of a truck, it allows the frame to wobble and move without breaking. As you bond that glass in such a structure, a rigid structure, you do run the risk of breaking the glass when it's shipping. The second thing is, on that front frame is where those LEDs are hidden, and then you're going to have to come up with a way to put the LEDs in without exposing all the wires and things on the back. So there has been some thought of that, but there is a bit of a challenge because of it. So great question. What was the minimum water PSI for operation again? Curious if it can run the unit on an RO system. So in the owner's manual, we say the low end is 20 PSI and the high end is 50 PSI. Yes, I believe there are RO systems that will be able to handle that. In fact, I believe there is an inline one that you can purchase as well. It's not something that we're currently selling. Like I said, we just offer the filter with it. We don't offer any of the softening. Now, if you're currently running, your customer is currently running a soda fountain, or like we said, a commercial coffee maker, they should be able to pull off of that same water supply and be just enough for our unit. Dan Frigo, wait, wasn't LEDs yesterday? It was, but I had to make a bit of a clarification. See, we do have some interaction when people send us emails, placedinshelter@gmail.com, and then that way I can make some clarifications or corrections if I get anything wrong, because I've been locked up here for a long time. I think I'm losing my mind. Excellent questions. Does anybody else have a question? All right, we are going to give it a second here. And with that, we're going to get to everybody's favorite part of the show, and that's going to be our memes of the day. And our first one's actually coming in from Brent with Professional Reps, and I really enjoyed this one. Tomorrow is National Homeschool Tornado Drill. Go ahead and lock your kids in a closet until you give the all clear. You're welcome. This one actually came in from Travis. I can't relate to this one because my kids aren't in school, so I just have to keep them alive. I don't have to teach them anything. The homeschool teacher I thought I'd be versus the homeschool teacher I am. So I thought that was a good one. I put it in here because, man, when I see Magic School Bus, that takes me back. And last but not least, this one is actually from Jay Bronco. And I really like this one. If you'd like to know how it feels to be in the hospitality during the coronavirus pandemic, just remember when the Titanic was sinking and the band continued to play, well, we're the band. So I thought that was a pretty good one too. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. As always, thank you everybody for attending. Again, if you're catching this on YouTube, we are live every day, 3 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Fridays. If you do hit the bell notification, it'll let you know every time we post a new video. And always, as always, you can show us your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing. And thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.